Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Hey, check out our brand new sponsor, Dynamic Solutions 2. That's the number 2. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? Do you want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions. 424-888-2820. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. You get a 10% discount.
Hey, you, podcast listener. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
And go. Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting through my website, emailrevealer.com. Also, too, if you like today's show, check out our members section at OppermanReport.com. We have all kind of exclusive content. We are updating, right now as we speak, we're updating the members section. We have to switch from TinyPass to this other company called Pico that runs the paywall. So there's going to be some interruptions of service, all kinds of problems. Okay, we're trying to get through it. You have no idea. But just we're going to send a MailChimp out there addressing the issues at OppermanReports.com. Anyway, also, too, you can go to Spreaker to find our free archives at Spreaker.com. And if you go there, because our guest today is Donald Jeffries, and if you go there, he's been on the show several times before. We've talked about his past books. We had him on talking about crimes and cover-ups in American politics, hidden history, an expose of modern crimes, conspiracies and cover-ups. I think another one, too, was something about you didn't build that?
Yeah, Survival of the Richest, yeah.
Survival of the Richest.
The original title was You Didn't Build That, but yeah, it was published under Survival of the Richest.
We had him on before he had a title.
Exactly.
Right? This is what we're doing for you over here. We're working overtime. Donald Jeffries, thank you so much. Can you remind the audience and tell them who is Donald Jeffries?
Well, you mentioned my books, and my new book is Crimes and Cover-Ups in American Politics, 1776 to 1963, the history they didn't teach in school. It's basically a prequel to Hidden History, and it features a foreword by Ron Paul. And I have another book coming out in January of 2020 about bullying in school called Bullyocracy. So I've always got something. Initially, you contacted me about this because I have a book about showbiz that is almost done. I'm just waiting to try to talk to a few more old entertainers, try to get as many of them in the book as I can, and tentatively titled On Borrowed Fame, where I explore the disparity in finances in the entertainment industry, which is pretty incredible. Some people get incredibly wealthy, and others don't for basically the same type of career, and lots of things about the unsolved mysteries and murders and unnatural deaths, which have always been way too common in show business.
When the audience should know, we actually did this interview last week, but it didn't got deleted accidentally. And when I asked you about your new book coming out, Bullyocracy, you were extremely passionate about this topic. What can we find in Bullyocracy?
Yeah, I mean, I am. It's something that, and I don't really even know why. I guess, because I'm one of these last of the do-gooders, civil libertarians, where I'm always kind of defending the weak, and certainly nobody's more vulnerable than the people who are typically bullied in schools. And I just examined countless incidents that had happened, many of them resulting in what we call bullycide, the death of the kids, and usually the kids who had been bullied, literally bullied to death. And it was astonishing for me to see that in every case, every one of these cases was the same pattern, where the parents, the kid and the parents had talked to the teachers, talked to the principals, the school administration, sometimes even the school superintendent of their district. And it was just a stonewall. They consistently refused to do anything to stop the bullying, even when they knew who the bullies were. And even after these kids died, they tried to deflect responsibility. In many cases, even when the suicide notes listed specifically, I'm doing this because of bullying, and even listed the individuals that bullied them, they still refused to, they'd say it was a complex thing, and they would not attribute it to bullying. And in this book, I detail how what I call the social hierarchy, and that's basically the concept of popular kids in every school, and usually channeled through sports like football and basketball, but cheerleading, prom king, prom queen, homecoming queen, all that stuff we see, which is tied around school spirit, but it really is tied in directly to the concept of popularity. And of course, for there to be popular students, there have to be unpopular students, where the term doesn't mean anything. So, and I think that's where the problem lies. And for whatever reason, even many of the anti-bullying experts, a couple of them I interacted with in this book and communicated with, they don't see the problem, and they end up invariably siding with the bullies, which is a curious thing for so-called anti-bullying advocates to be doing. But it's a huge problem, and I hopefully in this book I'm the first person to look at it this way, and I think it's the right way.
What about this issue? You see it especially in schools where people are hesitant to report the bully because the bullying will just get worse if you turn them in. If you go to the teachers, if you go to the principal, it'll just get worse.
Yeah. Well, that's I talk about they passed out a flyer at an elementary school in Nebraska a few years back, and I talked about this in the book, because you talk about advice. What's a young mind supposed to do? In this flyer, they said that basically if you tattle, and they again, these teachers and the school systems love to use the term tattletale. They don't like the term whistleblower, which is basically what every bullying victim is. They're blowing the whistle on somebody that's been harassing them, in some case physically, beating them. But they like to, if you tattle on the kids, you're this is something you shouldn't do. And they also say you shouldn't retaliate, you shouldn't fight back. So exactly what is the advice there then? And you're not supposed to tell an adult authority figure, or you're a tattletale. And if you fight back, I think the quote in the book is then you instigated the fight. I think that's what it said. Or it's like So what is a kid supposed to do? So you're right. People that are looked at by it becomes tattling. In the adult world, this graduates to the term snitching, and we call them rats. And we see this in occupations, especially in police and firefighting. I mean, I have all the list of these occupations. Flight attendants. I mean, the bullying is what they call it, hazing or pranks when it becomes adults. But it's all the same thing. It's all picking on somebody to try to make them seem miserable. And we've seen so many hazings on college campuses that have resulted in deaths. A lot of times around the fraternity and sorority Greek lifestyle. And that's really just an outgrowth of the popularity that we see in high school. It graduates to a new level, and by the time it goes to the workplace, most of the adults don't really have to physically bully anybody, but it still goes on, the harassment, the favoritism. And it's all part of the same mindset. And because it's not addressed when it should be, when the children are youngsters, I mean, theoretically, the only reason anyone has to fear telling an adult figure about a bully bullying them is because that they know that somehow the bully will come back and retaliate. Well, if that happens, then shouldn't it be obvious what happened? I mean, we know who the problem is in all these cases. I mean, I remember going to school, volunteering for my children's classrooms. It was very easy to see, first, second grade, you can see who the budding bullies are. And it's obvious. There's a personality, but it's never nipped in the bud. The teachers somehow don't seem to see it, and I recount case after case of how, much like you'll see in sports where they don't catch the initial hit, but they catch the retaliation. Well, it's the same kind of thing that happens in schools where they wake up and suddenly notice on the playground if a victim attempts to fight back, and then they punish them equally when it's obvious who the aggressor is. So it's a huge problem, and I tie it again to the social hierarchy, and because bullying really becomes a thing where you see more and more children like taking their lives, even good-looking girls, because of the mean girls phenomenon. And that happens typically in junior high and especially high school, and that's when that social hierarchy is completely established, because the popular students, once they realize that they're popular, and that happens maybe around sixth grade, something like that, right about the time when puberty is about to hit. At that time, this popularity concept comes in, and I saw it as a student, and I saw it as a parent of my children. I saw how suddenly the other students start fawning over these kids that they've somehow determined to be popular, and then once you get in high school, you're wearing your football jersey every Friday to class. So in case you don't know who these guys are, we're going to let you know. And if you don't know who the cheerleaders are, they're wearing their outfits too. And of course you have the Letterman jackets. I mean, all the accoutrements, so that in case you don't know who these, and they're basically in schools, they're very little, not much different than celebrities are in the world. They're typically celebrities in their own school systems, which makes them big fish in a small pond. But I think that the problem is, now that they've finally admitted through studies that the bullies are not these troubled kids from terrible economic backgrounds whose fathers may be beating them or something. In most cases, they are the popular kids. And in most of those cases, especially with the female popular kids, the mean girls, they're actually excellent students. Many times they're members of the National Honor Society. And they're fooling everyone. And I think that's why there's a reluctance to punish them, because in many cases they're a football star, they're a cheerleader, prom queen or something, and so they don't want to go there. Instead, they'll try to blame the nerd or the trench coat mafia type that is actually the victim of their bullying. So it's a huge problem. And I know I'm the only one out there looking at it like that, but I've already gotten feedback from some of the parents who experienced this, who are grateful that someone is finally, as one of them told me, finally looking at this thing from the right perspective.
It seems to be a situation that's getting worse. I can understand like the teacher saying, well, we don't want to get involved. Let the kids work it out amongst themselves. Because you got to learn how to get along in life. But it seems like today, especially I'm thinking to my daughter when she was in middle school and first going into high school, how she and her friends would prepare in advance. They had a group. They were preparing in advance, like who was going to sit at their lunch table together and who was going to be in their group. like there was a lot of strategy involved.
Oh yeah,
yeah, like,
sure.
But it wasn't